Now, let's talk for a second about the appeal of democratic socialism, because what you hear from the left is that democratic socialism is what exists in places like Denmark and Sweden. That is real socialism. There's only one problem. None of this is true. Nima Sanandanji, who writes for The Stream, he has a very good piece about myths regarding Nordic socialism. He's an author and researcher. He holds a PhD from the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden and conducted research at the University of Cambridge. And he has a great piece about why it is that so many people think that democratic socialist republics are the ones that are really succeeding, when in reality they're succeeding in spite of their socialism. So here's what he says. The success of Nordic countries is based on the fact that historically they have relied on free markets and protection of private property. The only exception is a short period in Sweden wherein socialist policies crippled growth and job creation. Nordic nations do have high taxes and generous welfare, but in many other regards they have unusually free markets. Danish Prime Minister Lars Rasmussen says after seeing his country held up as an example in the American presidential debate, he told students in a 2015 speech at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, quote, "I know that some people in the U.S. associate the Nordic model with some sort of socialism. Therefore, I would like to make one thing clear. Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy. Denmark is a market economy. When it comes to areas such as business regulations, trade policy, investment freedom, vouchers in the provision of education, elderly care and health care, and partial privatization of retirement savings, Nordic countries are among the most free market in the world." Okay, Nordic countries did not become rich by relying on socialism. Sweden is the only Nordic country that actually experimented with socialism in the 70s and 80s, and instead it destroyed Sweden's economy. From 1970 to 1991, Social Democrats tried to introduce this form of planned economy into the country, and Sweden's growth rate fell to the second lowest among Western European countries after being among the highest. Also, there are a lot of people who say, well, look at Sweden and Denmark and Norway. Look at their wonderful, wonderful lifespans and low child mortality. There's only one problem. Their low child mortality and lifespans pre-existed the socialist attempts to remake their economy. In 1960, the tax rate in Denmark was 25% of GDP, lower than 27% in the U.S. at the time. And all of their outcomes were just the same or higher than they are now. The top 10 countries with the longest lifespan in 1960, when these were all capitalist, Norway, Iceland, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland. It's exactly the same now, except that they've actually dropped a little bit. And they had low child mortality rates too. And finally, important to note that if you're talking about why Denmark does better, Sweden does better, Scandinavia does better, important to note, all of these groups, when they come to America, do better in the United States than they do back in their home countries. So in Denmark, Danish Americans actually do better in America than they do in Denmark. So all of the talk about how all of these countries are thriving because of socialism just isn't true. Now, the reason I say this, the reason that I bring all this up is because of something that is quite hilarious. All of these millennial socialists are not socialists. All of these millennial socialists grew up in the lap of luxury. They grew up in capitalist luxury. And the same thing is true in all of these Nordic countries. All of these Nordic countries became wealthy because they embraced free markets and capitalism. All of these countries in Scandinavia, all of them were among the free trading companies, the most free trading companies and countries in the 17th century, going all the way back really to the 15th and 16th centuries. So this idea that it was socialism that made these countries rich is just absurd. What it really was socialism redistributing all of the gains that had been made in capitalism. And all of these countries, including Denmark, still have very free markets when it comes to attraction of business. They just have incredibly high tax rates that tamp down the growth of individual industry. Okay, the reason that I bring this up is because this Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has become this big star now, right? This 28-year-old star from New York. It turns out that she has been living off the benefits and excesses of capitalism for her entire life. She grew up in Westchester County, okay? She didn't grow up impoverished in government housing, right? She doesn't really have a working class background. So this is from the Daily Mail. The hardscrabble biography of Democrat congressional candidate Alexandria Ocasio Cortez has been called into question after the revelation that she grew up mostly in wealthy Westchester County. Though Ocasio Cortez, 28, was born in and currently lives in the Bronx, county land records show her late father, Sergio Cortez Roman, bought a quaint 3-bedroom in Yorktown Heights, New York in 1991 when she was about 2. But her biography says the state of Bronx public schools in the late 80s and early 90s sent her parents on a search for a solution. She ended up attending public school 40 minutes north in Yorktown, and much of her life was defined by the 40-minute commute between school and her family in the Bronx. Yeah, except she grew up in Westchester County. She said that she was a girl from the Bronx. She's refused comment on all of this. It's not to say that she's wildly wealthy, but she grew up in a nice middle-class family. Her father, who died tragically from lung cancer in 2008, was an architect and CEO of Kirschenbaum and Ocasio Roman Architects, PC, which focused on remodeling and renovations. Okay, he was a small business owner. So again, the idea that all of these people are living in absolute poverty. They originally lived in a planned community in Parkchester, and then they moved out and they got a house. They lived in a planned community of 171 mid-rise brick buildings in the Bronx, and when she was about 5, they moved to this house in Westchester County. So we're supposed to believe that she is not the result of capitalism. By the way, she seems to be pretty capitalistic in her own life. According to the New York Post, Ocasio Cortez used to work at Flat's Fix, which is an East 16th Street taco and tequila bar, and most of her coworkers liked her a lot. But one waitress says that at the end of one night, when Ocasio Cortez was tending bar at a Cinco de Mayo celebration in 2017, when it came time to split the $560 in tips she'd gotten at the bar, Ocasio Cortez gave the waitress $50. After the waitress complained to her manager, her take was doubled to $100. And this waitress says that this says something about her character. So like a lot of socialists, it's all fun and games until it comes time to stick the money in your own pocket. Also, this was pretty funny. So Ocasio Cortez was on TV, or actually she was on Twitter, and she'd been asked about her lipstick, because she wears this bright red lipstick. And she tweeted out, "I've been getting many inquiries about my debate lip color in the last 2 days. I got you. It's Styla Stay All Day Liquid in Besso." Okay, then it sold out. So the socialists pitched a capitalistic product, and it sold out, because this is still a capitalistic country, and this is all stupidity.